Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going to have a bit of fun because we have a stage absolutely full to the brim with pickers. And this video will go through all of the pickers that are on stage, naming them as well. And we'll stop it and have a little analysis of it, but also a quick word about some of the players. But this is going to be introduced by Vince Gill, and let's see how they get on.
It's a real honor for me to be able to sit in with him. Here's Randy Scruggs, Crown of Jewels All-Star Band, and Lonesome Reuben.
I'm just going to jump in here because it is difficult to interrupt this kind of picking that's going on all the time, because we have got just top players here, and especially when we start talking about Chet Atkins and also Earl Scruggs in there, absolute legends of the game. And it's amazing to have so many great players on stage, but also players who were revolutionary in the way that they did play. For example, Scruggs' style, named after Earl Scruggs, and that whole bluegrass way of playing. Just so much talent here, and I'm sure that a lot of players would just be amazed to be sharing the stage with guys like Earl, but also Chet. I mean, when Chet does play here, it's quite low in the mix, so we can't really hear him, but he's got absolutely nothing to prove. And also the fact that he had his Certified Guitar Player Award that he gave out to very select players, and not a lot of players have got that award. And just getting into the playing, if these weren't all top players, with the amount of picking we've got going on and the amount of guitars we've got in the mix, it really would get messy, but they're all absolutely spot on and they play their parts so well. And just the picking techniques that are on show, because alternate picking, I've always mentioned it in the videos wherever I feature country players, they've always got top country picking technique, which is alternate picking. And a lot of people don't realize that it crosses over to the heavier genres of rock and metal the same technique applies. It's alternate picking. And these guys, the very nature of country picking means that you don't get to rest. There's very rarely slow vibrato notes where you might have 2 or 3 notes over the course of 3 or 5 seconds. They are constant, absolutely a conveyor belt of lead notes when you're playing country, and that alternate picking has got to be top notch in order to pull that off, because with country music you don't get lots of distortion, lots of delay to maybe mask the technique. It is a genre of music where there is nowhere to hide because it's played on an acoustic guitar, a mandolin, a banjo, all instruments where you have to have great picking technique. And Randy kicking it off in the middle of the stage, like I said, the middle son of Earl, and having a dad like Earl, I mean, what a guy to live up to with your playing. But Randy, twice Musician of the Year at the CMA Awards, so he certainly knows what he's doing. That's Country Music Association Awards, if you don't know. And then we have his father, Earl Scruggs, an absolute legend of the game. I'm not going to have time to get into breaking down every single player. I will mention if I do have a video on a particular player that I'm talking about, but just quickly on Earl, because he was one of those that really did change the way the banjo was played. And bringing in his 3-finger picking technique, again, is called Scruggs style because he started to make the banjo a lead instrument rather than a rhythm instrument, just by the way that he was picking it. So you have to really look at these guys and see what they brought to the game when they were playing that absolutely changed the game. It changed technique fundamentally, and very rarely do you get players that do that, that make other players look at the instrument a totally different way and show you how it can be adapted, how it can be changed, and how the instrument can be made to give you a different voice. And then we move on to Vince Gill, and I have got a designated video for Vince if you want to check that out on this channel. But what I love about him is the way that he's so modest, even though he's achieved so much, because he just introduces this so tastefully, but the fact that he's won 21 Grammys, and in that respect, he's the most successful country artist of all time, but he's still just so happy to share the stage with other country artists. And just his ability, check him out, because here he isn't even playing an acoustic guitar, but the video that I did on him, he is playing acoustic. He's got such great ability, such a great picker, but also lead guitarist. So make sure you check out that video if you get a chance. And then we have Dwayne Eddy, who I featured on this channel quite recently. So again, check out that video for more information on Dwayne. But he was the king of twang. He just got that tone to his guitar. Again, we've got players on stage here that not only changed the fundamental techniques that were being used on banjo and guitar, but were changing the way it sounded, and by changing tones and some of the stuff that Dwayne did in the studio in order to get his twang sound. You'll have to watch the video that I did, but he really was an innovator in the studio for getting those sounds and just getting a unique tone and sound to his guitar so that you knew it was Dwayne when he was playing. And then we move on to Chet Atkins, Mr. Guitar. Again, I have got a video on Chet if you want to check that out, but you don't need me to tell you what a legend of the game Chet Atkins is, and the amount of players that he has introduced onto the scene, but also the amount of players that he shared the stage with. So gracious with his time, opened the door for so many artists, and let's not forget, great record producer as well. He has such a wide skill set, and of course, the Nashville sound, that is all down to Chet Atkins. So an absolute legend on stage, sharing the stage with a lot of fantastic players and guys that I'm sure would look up to Chet and follow really in his footsteps. He inspired a lot of the people on stage. And then we have Steve Wariner, who is a certified guitar player as awarded by Chet Atkins. Like I said, those are few and far between. I think there's only 5, and one of those was Chet himself. So only 4 players made the grade as judged by Chet to be certified guitar players. Steve is on that list, but also the amount of people that Steve has worked with, the artists, top artists. I think the list is probably the people that he hasn't worked with. That's the list you want to look at, because he's worked with everybody. Such a talented musician, 18 studio albums of his own. Just listen to Steve's playing, because that's all you need to know. And Chet Atkins isn't one of those guys that's wrong about matters of guitar. And then we do move on to Anita Cochran, who's just about to come up. So she's going to be getting into a solo again, another great picker. She actually had a number 1 in 1998 with Steve called What If I Said. But we're going to be getting back into the video now to check out the rest of the pickers that are on stage. And there we have it. Great to see so many fantastic guitar players, but also I just want to bring in Leon Russell, because on this channel I know that I focus more on the guitars, but that guy, main inspiration, has been cited by Elton John on piano. And when you get a guy that can inspire generations like he did, it really does make such a difference, because everyone looks at guitar players and, you know, lead solos and might be inspired by those players, but the guys that can play the other instruments, because when you're playing behind the piano or you're playing keys, whatever you're doing is almost masked by that barrier of the piano. So in order to connect just with your playing, it's got to be so unique and it's got to be so special. And Leon was one of those players that just absolutely had that quality to his playing to inspire people like Elton John to start playing and to get up there and perform. And this is the guy that you'll hear playing on the Beach Boys stuff, but he was also a great producer, and he produced sessions with Ike and Tina Turner, also the Rolling Stones, Frank Sinatra, Bob Dylan. So such talent in one person, like a lot of the guys on stage here that have branched off into production as well. So not only having that top level of ability on an instrument, being able to supply vocals as well, a lot of the players on stage here, but then having that ability to get in the recording studio and make a top quality track with another band, with another artist. And then we have Chad Cromwell on drums as well, totally solid and one of those go-to guys for the top artists. We've had Joe Walsh, Mark Knopfler, Neil Young, Bonnie Raitt, Crosby, Stills and Nash. They've all benefited from his playing and his solidity in that back line, and certainly does a great job here as well. But then the second half of that rhythm section, we've got Don was doing a great job throughout this performance. But seriously, Don is one of those guys that just has the ability to not only be at the top level on his instrument, listen to the bass throughout this performance, absolutely spot on the whole time with that double bass, and the rest of it is the music production that he does, because he has that ability to just produce so well in the studio, which is a totally different set of skills you need to have in order to do that. And he's produced Bob Seger, Elton John, Willie Nelson's in there, Rolling Stones. there are so many bands, even Richie Sambora, that aren't necessarily bluegrass or country. He's got that ability to turn his ear to any genre, any style of music, and then get the sound that's required in the studio that the artist is looking for. This is one of those videos that could go on all night, because every player on stage here could have a very long video on them individually, because there is so much talent on stage here, and it's great to see one of these standalone performances of all these guys getting together for the good of the music, just for entertaining and to make that connection with the audience. And these guys, especially the older generation, probably inspired a lot of the other players that are on stage in this very performance. So really cool to look at. Thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.